Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Franson here with the legend Tom Cowan. I know he doesn't want to be called that, but he's made a massive name for himself and his company, and a very, very humble gentleman here. But one of the best orators, storytellers you'll find to communicate the intangibles in a very, very tangible way. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us on our Urban Freedom Summit.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks for having me, and good luck with the whole summit thing.
Yeah, well, we've combined a bunch of great speakers. You're included in one that are doing just amazing work in the field of health and freedom and sovereignty. And you're one of the biggest voices on EMF. I know you did a video several years ago at a medical conference on EMF. It's in the coronavirus. Everyone was asking like, hey, tell me about it. And you dove into saying, we're just adapting to these environmental toxins, the same as if you pollute the ocean and the dolphins would adapt. And so that's really that message. The second you said that resonated, I think, with the entire world that, guys, we're just getting polluted and bombarded, and health is primary. And health is primary for your own energy and vitality and for future generations. But it's the foremost thing for really controlling what goes in your body to being free. So when we bring up the term urban freedom to you, as someone that moved from San Francisco into a spot that's growing a lot of food, what are some of the first concepts that come to your mind?
The first concept that comes to my mind when I hear urban freedom is move out of the urban part. And I understand that that's not possible for a lot of people. So it's probably a little bit obnoxious to say that. But, if you can't do that, there's a lot of reasons to grow your own food. It's just to focus on that one. One of which is just the enjoyment and the challenge and the learning experience of doing that. I've learned more about health and medicine. I can give you an example if you want.
Yes, please.
From growing plants and animals than I think I ever learned in any kind of school or working. So the example, we have these two kittens who are now cats, actually. And, I'd been an ER doctor for 10 years. And so the guy cat named Pumpkin goes off, all the time and comes back, and his ear is all lacerated, got a deep wound in his ear. Now, there's nothing I can do about it because he just goes off and then, but he came back the next day to eat, and his entire ear was basically a hard mass. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then the next day he comes back, and his entire ear has liquefied, and it's now pus. And every single person I ever saw with a pus-filled abscess, like in their ear or head, or we drained it and gave them antibiotics. And we said, if you don't drain this and take antibiotics, you're going to die. It's going to go to your brain, go in your blood, and it's going to kill you. And so that's what I didn't always give antibiotics, but we always drained it. So I'd never seen a large abscess like that not drained. But there's nothing I can do. I fed him and he went off in the woods. And 2 days later, I saw him and I thought maybe he's dead out in the woods. Comes back, wants to eat. And there's nothing there but a little black dot. And so apparently the abscess drained and healed so that now 2 days later, or a few days later, you can't even see the area. At no time did he seem bothered by the thing. And I've had similar experience with plants. If you grow plants at the right time, right soil, right water, right air, and right sort of feeling in the garden, you get amazingly healthy plants. And if you do it at the wrong time, wrong soil, don't feed them, don't water them, no sunlight, you get sick plants. And somehow we haven't learned that it's no different with people. You know, we have amazing healing capacities, but you have to be outside in the sunlight, connected to the earth, you know, and not poisoning yourself like Pumpkin. That's how he lives.
Well said. I mean, taking yourself out of the stressor is number one. I mean, a lot of people would say, hey, we're here. Like for me, I'm staying in and I'm in, you know, Newport Beach, California. We're in the thick of it. And I'm here to raise the level of consciousness in this area. So, you know, there's some that are still doing it, but I am growing a lot of food, you know, along with it. So to have that consciousness and really stay grounded. And for me, I've chosen to not move, although I have plans to have different places I can go to get out of the mess when needed or just when I want to get away. So,
yeah, well, then people should organize with neighbors, friends, I don't know, even maybe community leaders who aren't corrupted yet, and turn, you know, like ball fields and parks into gardens. You know, you can grow food, and, you know, there's things like edible food gardens, you know, anywhere, especially in California. You can turn all the open space, or as much as you need to, and you could feed the vegetable fruit material, all that everybody needs in any town, just with available free open space. Guarantee it. I've, you know, done some of that myself in San Francisco in community gardens. You can grow all you need, and it's an exercise in not only political dissent, but of, you know, I can take care of myself, and it has many benefits besides just good food.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we just have a apricot tree, and the thing absolutely just went berserk and harvested. Literally, there's so many on the ground that any animal could ever eat. And there's so many on the tree. The argument that these urban areas will get more rats or, you know, rodents. And to Jim Gill's point, I mean, I had him over to my house to check out the backyard because we're going to do a food forest back there, even more than we already have. And there's just that ecosystem will build out. So you're not going to have to worry about those things. And there's plenty of food. So I'm with you on that. And I know you're a big proponent of growing your own food for your health and your freedom, and knowing that what you put in your body. And all these, you can go to the market. I mean, I literally walked into Whole Foods and there's a huge sign that says there's wax on about 20 different of the fruits just for aesthetics.
Yeah. I mean, and even, you know, like you take even a plant like zucchini, and literally within an hour, the nutrient levels go down. So, you know, not to say you should or shouldn't, but really the best way to eat a zucchini is within an hour of picking it. And a lot of other foods are like that. Now, some are not, and some need better cooked and not cooked or whatever. But I mean, you know, we have a long way to go before most of us have anything resembling a healthy food system. And, you know, the overriding theme here is there has been a concerted effort to take that which humans can easily and naturally do for themselves and turn it into commodities, whether it's food or energy or babysitting or school, so-called school, or entertainment or sports, or, you know, or just about everything has come from people moving and doing for themselves in a satisfying and enjoyable way. And now you have to pay for it. You don't walk, or ride a donkey. You buy a car and pay for gasoline from wherever, Saudi Arabia or somewhere. And it doesn't need to be like that. It isn't because it's better for people or the world. It's because some people make more money and get more power. That's why that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. Well, tell me some of the foods you're growing right now. What are your favorite, basically projects that you have going on that are feeding your soul?
So we have a large garden, and I like to count things and make lists. So I happen to know we have, I think, 89 different edible plants right now in the garden. And this is only the second year of the garden, second summer. So that's a lot, because I like eating different things. And the other principle I use with food is, if you look at Western American agriculture, what has happened is we've turned diversity and nutrients into sugar. And here's what I mean by that. In former times, there would be like wild mustard, and people would go and pick wild mustard greens. Now, if anybody's eaten wild mustard, it's not very appealing tasting, sort of nasty tasting. It's bitter, but it's loaded with minerals and phytonutrients and all kind of chemicals that the plant uses for defense, and we also use for health. Now, over the years, that has been hybridized into broccoli. Now, I'm not necessarily saying anything bad about broccoli, but the reason we like broccoli is because it's sweet. And the reason it's sweet is all those chemicals have been bred out, and instead the plant makes sugars, which makes it sweet. So what we end up with is a nutrient poor, quote, good tasting vegetable, which makes you have diabetes. Not broccoli per se, but if you look at an acre in the prairie in Kansas, 1850, stop, measure all the nutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrates, molybdenum, zinc, magnesium, everything. All the buffalo, all the rabbits, all the seeds, all the vegetation on that acre, and compare it to an acre of corn. Every single nutrient is higher besides sugar. So, you still with me? I can't hear you right now.
Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm good. So essentially what we've done is converted an acre of nutrients into an acre of sugar, and then people get diabetes. So my strategy of the garden, so let's say I have a choice between growing blueberries or aronia berries. Now, blueberries are really sweet, and I have nothing against blueberries, but they don't have anywhere near the nutrients that an aronia berry does. But an aronia berry doesn't taste so sweet, and so it's, quote, not as good. But, I got used to it over the years. So I'm growing aronia berries and, all kinds of perennial, like bitter melons. And I of course, do grow normal, broccoli and strawberries and stuff. But the main focus is, radicchio instead of lettuce. It's an old-fashioned heirloom variety. And that's also the freedom that you get when you're growing your own food. Because a lot of these plants you just can't find even in markets. Because we have been convinced that sweet food is good. And that came at the cost of the nutrient level of the foods.
Now, where do you get your seeds?
Sometimes a company called Baker Creek, and There's a local heirloom seed company around here that I use, Turtle Creek, I think it's called. Hudson Valley Seed Company has seeds. Sometimes Johnny's in Maine. There's a variety of places you can get really old-fashioned. Baker Creek is the best for the oldest variety. And, my two favorite, every year, there's always like one or two plants that I really want to do well. And this year, it's two plants. One is called bitter melon, which is a, quote, diabetic plant. It's very bitter, but if you salt it, you take some of the bitterness out. And the other is called jelly melon, which is a kind of hybrid or a cross between a cucumber and a melon. And it's this yellow, horny looking thing that has this amazing lime green interior. And anyways, I've tried it a few times, doesn't really grow, but I'm determined to find a place that it'll grow this year.
Well, what's your climate like? I mean, so are you doing greenhouses? I know we just did a tour with Jim Gill. He posted an event at Soa Hart Farm in Fillmore here in Southern California, and she created a whole ecosystem with her farm. So it's pretty hot there, arid temperature, so it gets really hot in the summertime. And you have a greenhouse. I mean, most stuff couldn't really grow in there, and so she created a tropical, literally rainforest inside the greenhouse, and it dropped the temperature 15 degrees in her greenhouse, which is just really incredible. So what are you doing climate wise, and how creative can people get just in their different climates?
Yeah, I mean, here it's, typical upstate New York with really hot summers. Some years, a lot of rain. I mean, I've only been here 2 years. So I think it rains sometimes and sometimes not. And, cold, snowy winter. So we do have a very big hoop house that has 8 beds in it that are raised up about 4 feet. And I basically do something called a hugel culture, which is I put dead logs and branches and leaves, and then I build it up in soil and compost. So it's about 4 feet high, big wooden frame. And, I have, tomatoes and squash and melons and peas. And, we've been eating spinach and greens since February here, and zucchini for a month. So you'd be amazed. And it's not even heated. You could heat it, and then, so there are modern ways of growing all year round that people are working with. And then, the outside is the sort of spiral raised beds and a little orchard area. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not like an expert gardener. I'm pretty experienced, but, there's people who can do all kinds of stuff. And so there is literally no excuse for not growing stuff, no matter where you are, what your climate is, because there's always a way. And, then you eat the foods that grow. And, that's pretty much what we do. We eat the foods we can grow. And I don't like to buy things from California or Mexico unless I'm living there.
And then when was the last time you really look at going to a market? And I mean, you don't really have to as much anymore, right?
No, I mean, we have chickens, so we get our own eggs. We have 3 sheep. 2 we're going to slaughter in the fall. So we'll have meat and organ meats and bones and heads and stuff to make broth. I mean, we still go to get toilet paper, and our cats happen to like venison, so I give them that. And occasional stuff, like creme fraiche, maybe. We have a friend who has a dairy farm. So it's all, biodynamic, grass fed. And so that's where we get our milk and yogurt from. And Yeah, I mean, you can do it. You just have to be committed and look for it, and you'll find places in your area and people who are doing it. And it's really, to me, it makes life so much more interesting, fun, connected. I can't imagine living in any other way.
And how much out of the day are your hands really in the soil moving?
I mean, I don't work, so we go out around 5:30 in the morning and feed the animals. And now we have this slightly annoying habit of Pumpkin likes to sit in my lap for about a half an hour, so I do that. And then I'll work till about 8:30 or 9. Work in quotes, meaning mostly weeding and planting, watering, moving soil, putting straw down. And then I'll usually take a break during the heat of the day, may go out to pick a little bit, and then we do it again from like 5:30 to 8. So I'm pretty much outside about 5 to 6 hours a day.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, as far as now resourcing and sourcing from different farms, I know you guys, you have drtomcowan.com, drcowansgardens.com, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
yeah, go ahead.
I know you're growing a lot. You're bringing in some incredible sources to, combine and make some incredible seasonings and other foods that you're selling. Share with us a little about the development of your products.
In the beginning, when I was even when I was living in San Francisco, I was what I called a sharecropper of about an acre garden in Napa, which is about 20 times too much for a single family. And so I got other families to join me and help. But I mean, we had, 70-foot beds of kale, and I had no idea what to do with it, or winter squash and pumpkins and all kinds of peppers. And so I saw a restaurant that was turning them into powders, and they were incredibly flavorful and just really colorful, everything. So I said, well, that's what I can do. So for a couple of years, I was the grower for, and we had a commercial kitchen there, and we turned them into powders. The idea was we made powders after we took the vegetable to the place where you would eat it. So like, I don't really eat raw kale. We blanch it or steam it, and then we would dry it. And I don't eat raw winter squash. We, cook it or steam it or something. Whereas peppers, I do eat raw. So those were raw. And the other one was then to find people who are foraging for wild vegetables, because like I say, wild vegetables tend to be more nutrient dense. So we have like wild ram powder and chaga mushroom powder and things that people don't normally have access to. Over time, it got way too big for me to keep growing for the company. And in fact, I didn't really want to be a kale farmer. So I converted that into a sort of a family garden. And we started finding the best growers to grow, our ashitaba, this amazing perennial vegetable, and all the different vegetables that we powder. And so we were basically supporting family farms or, growers who would devote their place to growing the best squash, the best varieties, the best soil, et cetera. And so that's how it's evolved into a whole network of foragers and small farms and biodynamic farmers. Each have their part growing something for us. This one farm grows peppers. They grow the best peppers I've ever seen. And, and they provide us with peppers to make pepper salt. So that's really what we're doing at Dr. Cowan's Garden, and trying to diversify and increase the plant food make it more wild and more perennial. And, there's a great line that human beings have now, instead of Homo sapiens, we're Homo domesticus fragilis, which means domesticated, fragile species, which I think about sums it up. And one of the ways of not being so domesticated and fragile is to move and eat wild food. You become less domesticated. So that's what we're trying to do with that.
And just to set the record straight, I think it's akin to say you don't need glyphosate to grow food properly. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, I don't know who made that idea up that you do. I mean, I've never used it. I don't even know. I mean, there are occasionally things that don't work, but there's always a reason, like the soil isn't right, or you try to grow lettuce in the heat of the summer, it doesn't work. And you could spray it or put whatever you want on it. And I don't know, maybe you could make it work, but I wouldn't want to do that. One of my rules is if the plant doesn't work, there's something wrong with the conception of what I'm trying to do here. Either the soil isn't right or I planted at the wrong time. And let me just give you another example. You take these wild plants, even a plant like chamomile. We grew it last year, and this year our entire patio, including the cracks between the stones, has chamomile plants. Versus now, you ask a lot of farmers, oh, you can't grow this plant unless you till the soil, put the fertilizer, put the glyphosate, irrigate it, etc. Just think of the difference in the power and the strength. I mean, that chamomile figured out a way to grow up through the stones, and it looks fine. That's the kind of plant you want to eat.
And isn't it similar to the pharmaceutical industry? I mean, we've been taught that drugs are health right now. And this has been a lie that's been told for over 100 years.
Yeah, Pumpkin didn't need any drugs to heal. I don't know where he went. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he fasted or ate a mouse, but he didn't need any drugs. And here's the reason I say that story is most doctors have never seen that.
Right.
They've never seen anybody heal from anything, maybe a cold. And so they of course don't think it's possible. You have an abscess, if you don't drain it and give antibiotics, you're going to die. And, you go through your whole career, you've never seen it. You've never seen anybody have the phenomena we call measles, and nothing even happens to them. They just seem fine. And they tell you all kind of stories, and it's because they have no experience with real healing. None. Never seen it, don't know what it looks like, never took care of an animal who didn't do that, never grew a plant that didn't need, they just do fine if you give them some similar semblance of what they need.
Yeah, and we already have what we need. I think that's the whole thing is we're built on viruses, fungus, bacteria, and we're just one with the universe. And we have this incredible innate healing capacity and regenerative capacity just within us and within the soil. And the less we do, the better to it at the end of the day.
We don't need to go around killing stuff. It all takes care of itself.
Yeah. So let's just end on that note. I mean, this is just freedom beyond. It's just to know that we're enough in every way, shape, and form, whether it's our bodies, our families, our soil, and we don't need to add all this nonsense into it. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. With that, we can have the most freedom no matter where we are in space. So Hey, Tom, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your wisdom. I appreciate your voice. It's so powerful. Everything you're touching is just my new favorite. And I mean, I frequent your websites. So grateful that you're sharing our grounding bags, on drtomcowan.com, and then your seasonings. I mean, they literally add so much flavor to every meal. And I'm sprinkling in my daughter's smoothie. She doesn't even know. And so I'm getting this nutrients in the family that is just allowing us to stay so healthy. So thank you so much for everything.
Okay, Justin, take care. We'll be in touch.
You got it. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Bye-bye.